Good afternoon, America. This is Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. We are less than 24 hours before the polls open. Voting's been going on with mail-in ballots for weeks in some places. Bottom line is all the yelling out of Washington, D.C., all the ads, all the commercials, all the money that's been spent to try to convince you as an American to get out and vote and to vote for your principles. Now it's up to you. It's up to you. Joe Biden said that the soul of America is at stake. He accused anyone who didn't agree with him as attacking democracy. Well, let me tell you what attacking democracy is. Attacking democracy is when you set the FBI onto the paths of trying to get after and harass and arrest parents who had the audacity to complain about what they're being taught, their kids are being taught in school. That's when democracy is at risk. Democracy is at risk when we look at a federal government that is intent on jamming content into your children's education that is obscene and anti-American and attacks the very basis of America's existence. That's when democracy is under attack. I'm a little sick of this sanctimonious garbage that we've been seeing. And the good news is now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. You get to tell Washington, D.C. if democracy is under attack. You get to tell Washington, D.C. what you want, who you want to represent you. You get to tell Washington, D.C., do you want Nancy Pelosi as Speaker? Do you want Chuck Schumer as the majority leader and with Kamala Harris able to break ties? Or do you want to put a check on Joe Biden's power? You have an opportunity to get to right now, in the last few hours before polls officially open, and certainly then in the next 28 hours, 29 hours, 30 hours, depending on what time zone you're in, before polls close, you have the opportunity to get your friends, neighbors, anybody who you know, anywhere in the country, and encourage them to go out and vote. Because America's at stake. Everything that I believe about America is at stake. Our individual liberties are at stake. Our ability to actually petition our government is at stake. Our ability to have free speech is at stake. Most people don't realize, I'm sure this audience does, and we've talked about it enough, but when the federal government, when the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are spending their time going to the social media platforms and making suggestions of things that should be banned on those social media platforms, that's not America. That's a state, that's a totalitarian state that is dictating speech and shuttering anybody whose speech is not approved. I'm sorry, but America is too important to leave to the politicians. And now it's your turn to have your say. Many of you fought for this country. Many of you volunteered to be in the military. Many of you lost loved ones in the defense of this country. We are under the precepts of America, the ideals of America as laid out by the Declaration of Independence, are as under attack today as any time in history. We've gone around the world defending other people's borders, but we won't defend our own. We allow millions of people to come across the border unchecked and have the administration tell us, oh, the borders are secure. Tell us the lie that the borders are secure. We look at places like Afghanistan where murder and mayhem is commonplace, but we ignore Chicago, where murder is an everyday occurrence and young lives taken on the streets of Chicago, not because of a lack of gun laws, but in fact of a lack of enforcement of criminal justice laws. And the fact is, we're seeing this all over the country, where far left prosecutors are saying, I won't prosecute property crimes. In fact, we have a Senate candidate, Democrat Senate candidate in Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, who actually was on the parole board and sought to release first-degree murderers, people who were convicted of first-degree murder, heinous crimes. Look them up. And he wanted them out on the streets because we needed to empty the prisons. Well, folks, if you want mayhem on the streets, put people who create mayhem on the streets. And that's what the left's cash bail policy has done. We see it in LA. We see it in San Francisco. We see it in Chicago. We see it throughout this great nation in big cities where you have the horrible combination of a George Soros supported prosecutor in alignment with cash bail laws, which allow for the worst of the worst to end up on the streets in a turnstile justice system where literally, and this is not hyperbole, literally, police officers and sheriffs are spending more time doing the paperwork than the person spends in jail who's been arrested. This is a massive problem in this country. We have drug overdoses at all-time highs because the Chinese government keeps flooding our city streets, our cities, our states, our localities with fentanyl and fentanyl-laced drugs, using the Mexican cartels as their delivery system. And yet we sit and go around and say, gee whiz, if we just legalize pot, we'll solve the whole problem. Well, what we've done is we've opened up Pandora's box. And whether you believe in legalization of marijuana or not doesn't matter. Point is, we have Pandora's box opened. We have young people and older people dying of fentanyl poisoning every single day at record levels. And it is increasing. And we leave our borders open. We leave our communities vulnerable. There's no excuse. America is too important to leave to these clowns who are in charge right now. And tomorrow, Election Day, is the day when we get to fight back. And that's what I'm hoping you will do. Join me in fighting back by going to the polls. Join me in fighting back by telling your friends. We've put a little 15-second get out the vote video together that you can share with your friends. And I'm going to show it, and then I'll come right back. I'm going to take some questions. But I wanted you just to see it because it's not just because it's my pretty face, but I think it's okay. America's worth fighting for. That's why your vote matters. It's also important that you get your friends, neighbors, and other like-minded people to vote. In this election, it's going to be too close to call. Don't be left on the sidelines. Don't have to tell your family and your friends that you let America down. America's worth. Okay, there you go. It's pretty straightforward. This is about, I've done a lot of get out the vote efforts. We've done get out the vote efforts for years. We have some that we're doing right now. We do a lot. We have advertising out around the country on various issues. But ultimately, right now, there is no more important messenger to your friends than you. So I just ask you, take the time to send your friends a reminder about how important this election is and what's at stake. We can't allow us to lose this country without a fight. And I'm not talking about on the streets and taking on Antifa and all that stuff. I'm talking about going to the polls and demanding that your politicians stand up for honest elections. Those are basics. And when we win this election, and I think we will, then holding those who are elected accountable for the next 2 years to help clean up the election system, to help and to make certain that we do a couple of things. And these are a couple of things that are easy. Number one, force the DOJ, Department of Justice, to be accountable. Force them to enforce the laws against those who are trying to intimidate our justices. Right now, we have people out banging drums and stuff in front of justices' houses all night long, attempting to disrupt their lives and their families' lives, attempting to get them to quit and say, no, I'll give in to a far left agenda because of a bunch of spoiled brats beating drums in their front yards, against the law, by the way. It's a matter of whether we're going to bail to those people. Are we going to allow the criminals to run the streets? Or are we going to stand up and say, no, we want civil liberties protected, and we need civil liberties protected, but we're not going to have people committing crimes and not being held accountable for that. If state legislatures want to change laws, that's a fight. It's a political fight. But when prosecutors change those laws based on decision that they don't want to prosecute crimes, that's a different situation. That's a prosecutor changing the law with their discretion. We can't stand for that. We have to force prosecutors to actually prosecute the laws. We're at a crossroads. Joe Biden was right. The soul of America is at stake. Who are we going to be? Who are we going to be? Are we be a nation where we believe in individual liberty, where we believe that all men and women are created equal, where we believe that it's not the color of your skin, but the content of your character? Is that who we're going to be? Or are we going to be a country divided along the lines of race, where there's nothing more with identity politics, where children have the lie that America is a corrupt, morally bankrupt nation founded on white supremacy at the expense of everybody else, and with that being our underlying DNA that can't be overcome? Are we going to live that lie? Are we going to let our children be fed that lie, so that when they look at the red, white, and blue, they see hate? Are we going to allow that to occur? Well, I say no. Join me. Vote. Get your friends to vote. Nothing is more important than taking this country back. And tomorrow is the first day in that journey. I'm going to now look at some comments here and just talk a little bit. Deborah Klena, you bet it is. Dems have to go. We must understand the need to take our country back. Biden is attacking our country. Deborah, you're absolutely right. Get as many friends as you can to go out and vote. Take the risk if people are with church or elsewhere where we don't talk about politics, we're in church. Take the risk of letting people know that how much it is important, what's at stake, and how important it is. It's one of those things we have to do. And Deborah continues, the balance of power must be restored. Did you know that 5% of the people who are voting, who say in polls that say they're voting for the Republican, is because they want balance of power restored, because they want a break on Biden's power? I'm shocked by that. I never thought that issue worked, but apparently it does. So yes, we do need the balance of power restored. Yeah, let's get that read. I've got, that's my Captain America little thing back there, right there, I guess. It's it's a gift my wife gave me a while ago as a Hallmark ornament. So there it is. We voted Republican up and down the ballot. Thank you very much, Roland. One of the interesting things, and this is, this can't be emphasized enough, just because you voted, that's a great thing. Check with your local campaign now and see if they need help at the polls. And it may not be your polling place. There's some polling places that are harder to get somebody to fill than others. For instance, I'm going to go to a district in Virginia. I'm registered to vote in Maryland, where I live, but I'm going to go to a polling place in Virginia rather than my home polling place after I vote. And help in a polling place in Virginia 7, which is Yesli Vega's, the challenger against Abigail Spanberger. Why am I going there? A, they're having problems filling that polling place, and so they need somebody to do that. But B, that's a target district. That's a toss-up district. Spanberger is an extraordinarily well-funded candidate. She's outspent Vega 4 or 5 to 1. Vega is a Hispanic woman police officer who has decried the abuse on January 6th and is getting attacked in the press here in Washington, D.C., where that issue plays. That issue matters. She's being attacked on a whole variety of issues, and she hasn't had the money to fight back. I've personally contributed to Abigail or to Yesli Vega's campaign. and I'm going to go personally invest in it by going in and working the polling places. If you have a national or state election that is important in your state, go work a poll, volunteer to hand out stuff at the polls, volunteer to make calls, to get out the vote calls, contact your people across the country to get out and vote. But tomorrow, don't be afraid to say, I want to take time off of work. I want to go and personally invest in helping make this country free. That's what I'm doing. So I'm going to have a quick update in the morning on the what's happening, and then tomorrow night I'll be doing a show as a guest host all night long on Conservative Commandos Radio Network and television, the AUN TV network. So I'll be doing that for about 5 hours. I'll probably take about an hour break around 10 p.m. and do something specifically for you guys. But that show will be up on our Facebook, hopefully on our Facebook audience tomorrow. So you'll be able to grab that, and I'll have a lot of different people, not just this ugly mug. You'll have a lot of other mugs that are much more pleasant to look at. So with that, I just wanted to thank you all and empower you. This is your time. This is the time for Americans to have your say. Take advantage of it. That's all I got to say. America's too important to sit on the sidelines. Thank you, folks. Let's win tomorrow. And let's just lift up a prayer for America. And with that, God bless.